This is Gotham TV Podcast, episode 58, talking about Gotham Season 2, episode 7, Mommy's Little Monster.
Hey, this is Drew Powell. I play Butch Gilzine on Gotham, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Welcome back, Gothamites. We're back talking about Gotham Season 2, Episode 7, Mommy's Little Monster. This is episode 58 of our podcast, Gotham TV Podcast. Great to have you with us. I'm Derek, one of your hosts.
Hi there, detectives. I am one of your other hosts, John.
Yeah. Really good episode this week.
Fantastic episode.
Yeah.
Loved it to bits.
Lots going on.
So much. Death, aftermath of death, reveals, exposure of Galavan, Jim being a clever clogs again, loads of it. Butch restored, hopefully back to his independent, free-thinking self. So
Almost. He's still missing a hand.
He's still missing a hand, and I'm not entirely sure whether he's been released of Oswald's brainwashing or Zaz's brainwashing, or whether he's now subject to Tabitha's brainwashing.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, but really good to be back, though. And another good week in Gotham, definitely. Had a good episode of Walking Dead last night as well. While we were watching it, we had a really good episode of this. And I've also been watching the O.J. Simpson case.
Yeah, that's been cool.
That's been really, really good. So lots of good TV this week.
Loads of great TV.
Yeah, really good.
And of course, for our discussions about Gotham, you can find us at GothamTVPodcast.com/iTunes. You can search for us on any other good podcast catchers such as Podcast Addict, Beyond Pod. Just search Gotham TV Podcast in those apps.
Absolutely. Loads of places.
Absolutely. Listen to us, leave a review, subscribe, and we will come floating through between the lug holes of you on a weekly basis whilst Gotham is on air. And of course, there's nothing better than the discussions between fans and watchers of Gotham or listeners of this podcast. So if you have any thoughts, comments, feedback, or discussion points about Gotham Season 2 so far, or particular episodes, send them in to feedback@GothamTVPodcast.com. You can also join our page on Facebook and our group. Just search Gotham TV Podcast. And of course, we live tweet every Monday at 10 p.m. for Gotham on Channel 5 as it airs. So you can follow us, join us, and tweet back at us at Gotham TV Podcast.
That's right. It would be remiss of us to not mention the fact that Gotham returns in the US on next week, the 29th of February, with episode 12, I believe, of the series. So a lot of our US listeners who've been listening to us in the break between when Gotham finished in the US and when it started up in the UK, will be able to get brand new content next week. So I know they're very excited about that. A lot of people tweeting at us about that, getting very excited to see brand new episodes. But it's great for us. We're currently experiencing that because we're getting new episodes every week that we haven't seen before, which is really enjoyable.
Absolutely. And we will be about 4 episodes behind then, roughly. And of course, we are now non-stop through to the end of Gotham here in Ireland and the UK.
That's right. So hopefully we'll be either very caught up or at least only 4 episodes behind, not as far behind as we may have thought when we began. So pretty good.
Absolutely. And hopefully there is a bit of transatlantic crossover between listeners, and hopefully we'll reconnect with some of our good friends that are Legends of Gotham.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's time to get into this week's episode discussion about episode 7. Mommy's Little Monster. This episode was directed by Kenneth Fink, first time directing an episode of Gotham. He's formerly directed episodes of Person of Interest, of Revenge, and of course of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., one of my favourite shows. It was written by Robert Hull, and also a new person to Gotham. He's never actually written an episode before. So he comes from Once Upon a Time, from Alcatraz and Gossip Girl. So no comic book shows in his past, but this is his first attempt. I think he's done a pretty good job. What I liked about this episode, to just before we kick into it, what I liked about it was this is episode 7 of season 2. Episode 7 of season 1, if you remember, was the big twist episode that had a lot of Oswald Cobblepot being a very central character. And we can see that trend is kind of taken on again in season 2. This is a very Oswald-centric episode.
Big time, yeah.
John, do you want to tell us what Robert gave us with this episode?
Absolutely. Butch surprises Cobblepot with his independent thinking as he leads Penguin into a trap of Galavan's making that has tragic consequences for his dearly beloved mum, Gertrude Cobblepot. As Oswald escapes the betrayal, he vows terrible vengeance upon Theo Galavan, who has been elected mayor, and who also promises to throw the resources of his new office at the Penguin. As the feud unfolds between the two men, Jim Gordon begins to suspect that Galavan is embroiled in more corrupt, criminal activities than his standing would have previously suggested. As Theo hosts his mayoral victory celebrations, the tensions erupt into a gunfight as Cobblepot arrives, uninvited, with his waddling henchmen. In the face-off between the GCPD and Penguin's men, Galavan is exposed to Gordon as the corrupt and murdering official we've known him to be, and Jim states his intention to bring him down. Elsewhere, following the death of Kristen Kringle, Edward Nygma's mental state worsens as his split personality attempts to convince him that he enjoys getting away with murder.
We do say it every week, but if this is your first time joining us for an episode, the way we cover our episodes is we take 5 points each to discuss the episode, hopefully covering off everything we want to talk about the episode. We also sometimes find a Batman 66 moment, which is a reference to the old Adam West show, which be a little bit more flamboyant moment in the episode. We find a Bullockism if we can find one. There's sometimes a Nolan moment. There's sometimes a Batman 89 moment, the Tim Burton film that we find during the episode. So hopefully throughout our discussion, we'll get and cover everything we need to, and then we'll talk about some feedback from our listeners.
But there be spoilers ahead, me hearties.
Absolutely. I think that's the first time we've had a spoiler warning in about 15 episodes. So hopefully we haven't spoiled loads of people on the episodes as they go.
Absolutely. Hopefully not. But we look through 5 points, as Derek said. And I think with that, Derek, what's your first point?
It's got to be the start of this episode, the opener for this episode, the death of Mama Cobblepot. Poor old Gertrude. I really wasn't expecting this one. You kind of expect that we would have been seeing Oswald tracking her down, finding her location. He's a pretty knowledgeable guy and usually able to kind of wangle his way out of any situation. You know, I was really expecting that potentially that they just twist the screws a bit more on Galavan and use Oswald a bit more. And here we see effectively, without any kind of question at all, we see Gertrude Cobblepot taken out, stabbed in the back by Tabitha. A nice little metaphor there for what's happening. And then that's it. End of the life of Gertrude. Really, really sad moment and really well put together. And I love how it plays out later on in the episode when you have Oswald clearly very, very hurt about the death of his mother and going to take out Galavan.
Yeah.
But comes up with an amazing plan. And just has, some lines where he's trying to plead with Jim Gordon, saying to her, but I had to watch her die. You don't know what that does to a person. And what we effectively find out it does to a person is turn them into an evil crime villain in Gotham, basically. An even more powerful and even more thoughtful villain, really, in this city.
No, absolutely. I mean, this leads to the wrath of the Penguin. I mean, this is a big mistake, really, from Galavan. Mm-hmm. Like, it leads to his reveal, his exposure to Jim Gordon as to his true being, his true personality, his true aim for becoming mayor, and his sort of more nefarious activities that he's been doing in Gotham. So, I mean, this is a big mistake for Galavan. Yeah. It makes the mask slip for Galavan here. And I mean, I do think that the death of Gertrude Cobblepot was really well done. It felt meaningful. She goes to her grave still holding that belief that her child, her only child, her son that she cares for, is still this good boy, is not this, criminal king, of the underworld of Gotham or the criminal empire that he has. She still sees him as her little Oswald. And little monster, my little PP, I think she says, about him is, mommy's little monster, all of these things. And, the whole revenge angle towards Galavan, the swipe of the knife that he does using the knife that stabbed his own mum to sort of try and get a quick, sort of win against Galavan by killing him.
Yeah.
really, really good. So this was a great opener. I mean, straight off the bat, this episode has so much going on and is a really big episode. Deaths and everything straight off the bat. Really good opening and a sad opening. And, Carol Kane is a great, Gertrude Kappelput.
Absolutely.
And her presence, will be missed. I mean, even thinking about it, seeing Oswald on screen for this season and knowing that she's been kidnapped, her presence is there because you know that it's driving him. You know that behind all of this is the love of a son towards his mom.
Absolutely.
And it's, you know that this drives him. So her presence will be sorely missed, but it will still drive him, I think, for terrible vengeance and fury that will be cast down upon him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those interesting things, isn't it? Because obviously, not only was she there as his driving force to get to her, a lot of the interesting thing about Oswald is that he was a bit of a mommy's boy. He was going home most nights anyway after his nefarious dealings within Gotham to kind of, pretend to his mother that he was leading a good life. But that's his only real connection outside of the underworld was his mother, Gertrude, which he no longer has. So it's kind of interesting to see what the impact might be. Does this drive him even further into crazy schemes and crazy plans, because he doesn't have to go home every night to explain what he's been doing during the day. Effectively, he has no partner, he has no wife waiting at home for him, no kids to explain it to, no mother now. Is this the point where he just goes all out now? He
becomes like proper birdie, dirty, crazy birdie.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, like this is kind of what will be the implication and ramifications of this. I mean, in many respects, he's lost his emotional crutch, his emotional connection. Mm-hmm. He is now quite literally on his own. He has no one. We do know, obviously, that his dad is going to arrive. But what's the relationship there? What is going to happen? Is it a good relationship? Is it a bad relationship? Because we haven't heard anything yet.
Mm-hmm. Really looking forward to seeing it. That's played by Paul Rubens, who's Pee Wee Herman to a lot of people. Really interesting idea to cast that character. Carol Kane would have been a kind of actress in the past. She would have that kind of crazier side to her acting in previous roles, like in Scrooged, I think I remember in. She was also in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix, where she also played quite a crazy character.
She's not alive, damn it.
She is alive, damn it.
Not Gertrude Kappelput.
That is true. She is not alive, damn it. But so it's interesting that they cast someone like Paul Rubens who comes from a similar
It's a miracle.
Background.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a miracle. It is interesting that they found another person to play this kind of role. So yeah, I'm kind of intrigued to see that dynamic. He definitely doesn't have a dynamic with his father like he would have had with his mother, who he's lived with for so many years. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out when that happens in future. But yes, hugely sad moments. Our Twitter feed was filled up while we were live tweeting last night with just people saying, "Oh no, I can't believe that's happened. So sad to see her go."
As were my eyes, filled up with watery, salty tears.
Aye. With that, John, do you want to lift the mood with your first point?
I think I will, because I did have, obviously, the death of Gertrude as one of my points. So you've stolen it, you wicked child.
It's Gotham. We steal everything, Gotham.
But yeah, I mean, let's lighten the mood with tea time with Lapsang Souchong. And again, we see a great tea reference from Alfred here. And of course, it's coupled with the fact that Silver St. Cloud is not the innocent young lady that she appears to be, that butter would in fact melt in her mouth. So I love this. I love how she's talking about tea hills and tea estates in China. And of course you get a deadpan Alfred that says, well, technically it's Pinewood. Right. So I don't know whether it is or it isn't, or whether he's referring to Pinewood Studios or something in a very British way. But like, I love this. I love the tea reference. Of course, you get a great one-liner off Selena as well, referring back to the slap by Alfred, which is, that smell really does slap you in the face, doesn't it, Alfred? Right. I mean, a great little nod back to to a moment which, you know, did have people talking about whether it maybe was a bit too much. But I mean, I think, you know, it's a good nod back to that. It kind of maybe puts it in perspective. And of course, Sean Pertwee has addressed it. So I love that. But I do think here, you know, this is a great episode for Silver St. Cloud. It really establishes her as part of the Galavan group, and that, you know, she is actually aware of what she's doing. She knows what her role is in Galavan's plan, and Galavan is more than happy to involve his ward in this, and she's happy to go along with this. But she is brutal to Selina. And it's a great little sort of tete-a-tete between the two, which I really enjoyed. You know, Bruce will only have one friend kind of moving forward. I mean, real threatening. And, you know, Silver St. Cloud is not a cloud with a silver lining.
No, certainly not.
More with an electric thunderbolt coming straight from it. But I loved this, and I loved the whole Lapsang Souchong conversation as well. Really nice little moment in this episode, which, again, it's the range of this episode. It all fits nicely together. And this was a really good point that sort of propels that Bruce Wayne storyline and the connection to the Galavans forward as well.
Oh, absolutely. And just that moment with Natalie Ann Lind, who plays the part, that moment where she talks to Galavan about the fact, you know, she's got Bruce. Do you see that finger? I've got him wrapped right around it. You know, really great moment for the character, because she could so easily have been just the love interest for Bruce. I love that she is just as Machiavellian as the other Galavans. Really, really good. And also the big moment at the end of the episode where, once again, poor little Brucey has his heart being pulled upon by a lady. He gets the big kiss from Silver, where she seals the deal of wrapping him around her finger, and it's viewed by Selina Kyle. So Selina knows exactly what's going on with Silver St. Cloud. So hopefully she'll be there to help out Brucey in matters of the heart. But yeah, it's a really tough moment, I would say, for Selina to watch. She does seem to have some kind of feelings for Bruce. But yeah, there's definitely that little wry smile on Silver's face after she's made the kiss. She knows what it's like to get a young man to twist him right around her fingers. So yeah, really interesting twist for Silver's character.
Absolutely. Most definitely. She is, obviously related to the Galavans, I think. Derek, what's your next point?
I also had Silver, which is why I had my comment about the kiss, because that was a big moment.
Big snog for Brucey.
Yeah. So I'll choose another one, which is the shootout at Butch's. Butch Gilzine becoming the head of a crime family, basically. He seems to have taken Gabe, who was the other side man for Penguin, the former right-hand man, possibly now still his right-hand man, since Butch has lost his right hand.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
He's actually Butch's left-hand man and Penguin's right-hand man.
Yeah, basically. So really good to see Butch in this kind of leading position. But of course, in walk Jim and Harvey. And we have a big shootout against the wonderful Victor Zsasz, who has seemed to have developed an even bigger crew than he used to have. He's
got a lot of feminine followers now.
Yeah, he had the two.
And not just in Gotham, I reckon.
That's very true. But very popular
his
actor.
posse in Gotham has grown massively.
Exponentially, I would say. It's like there was three kind of punk-looking Zazettes, as they were called, and we now have a good group of about 10.
We love the Zazettes.
Yeah, they're very cool. Very cool.
Very cool indeed. As is Victor Zsasz. I mean, this is a great character, and I mean, look, he's not on the screen for very long. He's not in the scene for very long, but he just lifts it. Just the presence that Victor Zsasz has is amazing for any scene that he's in. This is one of the great characters of Gotham.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And as if confirmation were needed, it was confirmed last week that Victor Zsasz will be getting an action figure in the Gotham action figure line. It's coming out in September, I think. So yeah, really good that they've picked him out and seen how much everybody loves the character. But I just love the showdown, and I'm gonna say this is my Batman 66 moment for the episode. The guns that are lying up against the wall, basically gigantic miniguns, I guess you'd call them, which are really rapid repeating guns. There's two of them. There's a Jim. There's a Harvey. I love that they both pick them up and shoot back at Zaz. The big shootout. And obviously, as Harvey is pointed towards the gun, he just goes, oh, hell yeah. He's excited about using these guns. Very, very cool.
Big time.
Yeah, very, very cool. Really enjoyed it. A good scene and a good bit of, kind of revelations from Butch, a bit of exposition from him about what's going on with Oswald, the fact that he didn't think that Galavan would go through with it. That's why he brought Oswald to see his mom. He thought, as I did, to be honest, that Galavan would use it as a threat over Oswald killing his mom. But it turns out that he twisted again on Butch Gilzean. So he thinks that Oswald's gone off the deep end now, and that's why they've left him. Whether I trust what his motives and what he's actually doing, or whether he is still involved with Tabitha and with the Galavan family, I don't know yet. But yeah, interesting to see that he basically turned tail and ran. He didn't dress up in a penguin costume and follow Penguin to the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. John, what's your next point?
My next point is the many little monsters.
Mm-hmm.
The army of waddling penguins that Oswald sends to Galavan's victory celebrations. This, to me, was just fantastic. It was so reminiscent of Batman 66. It was reminiscent of just almost jokery, actually, in the way it was done. I loved it. And it's a small point, and that's really all it is. I love the idea that, in order to infiltrate into this, event, he just sent loads of decoys.
Yeah.
At the celebrations. It was so Batman 66 for me. This is my Batman 66 moment. Is all these decoys, all heading to take out Galavan. It was just a great little moment. I just loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it fitted well. It made sense.
It was very smart as well. Yeah.
Smart, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, it was just really, really good.
Yeah, definitely. What I particularly liked about the scene, we've been covering Gotham right back to February 2014. Can you imagine? Almost 2 years now we've been podcasting about Gotham, which I love.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I had to question myself there. I wasn't sure whether we'd been doing it for 2 years. Yes, we've been podcasting about Gotham for 2 years now. But what I love about it was the original reveal, or the original pilot that was shown of Gotham was shown at the San Diego Comic-Con. And one of the events that they had on was Find a Penguin, effectively. And they had people dressed up as the character of Robert Lord Taylor's version of the Penguin.
Absolutely.
All around San Diego. People were able to find them, and they would give them, special entrances or special prizes at the time. Then cut to New York, where they had the premiere about a week before, I think, or maybe it was even the night it aired, in the US. They had the official premiere of the show in New York, and that was effectively centered around all of the ushers being dressed as the Penguin. So I love that they've incorporated that whole launch of Gotham into this episode. I think it's really interesting that they've been able to bring that right the way back from the original promotion stuff that they used to do in the marketing team, have turned this into a plan of Oswald's, and they finally actually, in continuity, given him his team of penguins. I love that. I think that's really cool, and a lovely little callback for all of us who've been around right back from the start. And
absolutely,
that's the original promotion material.
It was really cool. It just fitted really well. And I think, I've just got to move on to my next point here, which is the wonderful, conniving and menacing Galavan.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, obviously his cover's blown. So, I mean, whoops. He shouldn't maybe have gone after Penguin like he had done, but I think the whispering to Jim as Jim and Penguin face off, and Jim is there going, put the gun down. It's that conflict between having to protect a directly elected official with the knowledge that the person who he is protecting has killed, maimed, and bribed his way corruptly to that position. And I mean, that face-off between Jim and Galavan being actually the coward of hiding behind Jim Gordon, and with the Penguin, it is really good. But I just loved how Galavan whispered, shoot him. This is a direct order, shoot him. And Jim stands his ground. And ultimately, he reflects back on the words used by Galavan as he starts to use the resources of the GCPD, the DA through Harvey Dent in trying to attack Penguin, where Jim reflects back onto him, in desperate times, there are desperate measures or desperate actions required, and I will go after you. So, I mean, really good. I love this scene. I love this standoff between the two.
Yeah. And I will just give a huge compliment to the director of the scene, particularly during the showdown. You mentioned the whisper in Jim's ear of shoot him. I love how that's combined with the gunshot from Tabitha, I'm presuming, who takes the shot on Oswald and shoots him through the shoulder. I love how it's combined, as in shoot him, and then the shot goes off instantly, as if the command wasn't being given to Jim, as if it was actually being given to Tabitha.
Yeah.
I thought it was really well put together scene. And I loved it. I love the emotion from Oswald. Again, he is a murderer. He is a killer in this city. He's a very bad guy, but you feel so passionately on his side, because of the loss of his mother. Really well put together. It's only Gotham that can do this, that can make you really care for the villains the way they do. Hence, I guess, why this season is the rise of the villains,
Absolutely.
One of my other points is right in that scene. Just absolutely loved the coverage of Tabitha in here. We've got the entire GCPD police force here covering the event, making sure that nothing happens to Galavan. Yes, you've got Tabitha standing there, his sister, covering the whole thing because she knows she can't trust the GCPD to do her job effectively. She even does, in the most gruesome moment from the episode, as far as I'm concerned, she takes out one of the GCPD herself. She doesn't need to. There's no reason why she does it other than the fact that she opens fire on one of the people dressed as Penguin. She could be seen as defending her brother potentially, but she doesn't even talk about it. She takes out this GCPD member with a heel through the throat. And it is so gruesome and so well shot and so well put together. It's a fantastic scene.
This is one of those moments where it's like, why haven't I seen that before?
Yeah.
And maybe it has been done before on film or something, but this was a fantastic bit of horror, a bit of gore in terms of how she utilizes her high heels to kill through the neck. I think it was one of the Strike Force members.
I think,
as well.
yes, I believe it was.
So, it was just cool as cucumbers. I mean, this was fantastic improv. I don't know. She might kill someone with eyeliner in the next episode, but this was to me was sassy, classy, and deadly.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
It was deadly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it was really, really good. Liked it a lot. I'm really loving Tabitha. I'm loving every time she's on screen now. She's become one of my favorite characters on the show. She's really grown in this role, or the writing has really started to propel her forward. Yeah.
And it's really nice. It was kind of she was like this shy person at the start. She was just in the background. She didn't say too much. Just kind of sat or stood there. And she was having her fling or her thing with Barbara. What was going on here? And then, she has kind of just come into her own, really, really good.
Yeah, it's kind of, in the way I take it, is probably that Galavan had given her the command to stay back. You stay out of the way. I'll deal with this, and when I need you, I'll call you, because he knows her strengths and he knows what she can do for him. So I'm wondering if he's now kind of taken the leash off a little bit, or else she just couldn't keep herself leashed up like a caged lion for that long, or a caged tigress, I suppose you'd call her. I think she's kind of off the leash now and will do whatever the heck she wants. She's not going to listen to Galavan too much longer, I think. That was my point. John, I think I can guess, but what's your next?
It's the other huge point, and it's my final point of this episode.
Yeah.
which is good, bad Enigma. This is, and I've said this before, so I might be proven wrong, but this is a defining moment. This is where two become one. This is, the riddle me this. This is the riddle being left on the bed by his alter ego for himself, to find the body that he didn't know was moved and was surprised not to see on the bed moved by himself.
Yeah.
Like, this is a great Freudian sort of duality of the personality of Enigma and the birth of the riddle.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, the riddle is, you need a hand, look for her initials at the GCPD, and it's in the vending machine, it's with the lady fingers, and there are Christine Kringle's lady fingers being ejected from the vending machine. And I just thought this was awesome. And a bit like towards the end of season 1, the effects of Enigma speaking to himself, the modulated voice, the jerky, snappy kind of image and flickering image of himself, the echo in the voice as he's talking to himself is really well done. It really suits this character. And Corey Michael Smith is excellent, absolutely excellent doing this part. And I mean, I think we truly have now seen the birth of the Riddler. I think previously when I said that, with hindsight, it was the birth of bad Enigma. And now what we see is that, how did it feel? He keeps repeating it. How did it feel? And he goes, beautiful. And here we have now that good Enigma likes the feel of getting away with murder. It's no longer just simply a dual personality. This is the Riddler personality taking over. Yeah. And I want to see more riddles now. Like, this first riddle was excellent. I'm not saying they need to do it on every episode, but I really want to see the riddles coming. Even if they're done on cases that the GCPD are investigating, maybe it's fun stuff around the GCPD, but I want to see the Riddler do his riddles, but in a menacing way, but also in a fun way from time to time, like this.
Like, we've definitely seen the rhymes and we've definitely seen the questions that Ed's used before. But yeah, I love the merging of evil Ed and good Ed. I'm really, really, really enjoying that. This is a fantastic portion of the episode. Just simply the wake up call from evil Ed to good Ed when he's when he's sitting on the floor, isn't it? He wakes him up and just says, well, I took care of that because I knew you'd wake up all boo-hooey this morning and not know what to do with yourself. I love the turn of phrase is so different than we've seen from Enigma. Corey Michael Smith knocked it out of the park. He's absolutely the villain of the week this week, I think, would be the way I'd say it. There's so many villains in this episode. Everybody from Butch to Gallivan has their moment.
Absolutely.
But
completely,
without a doubt, Corey Michael Smith is fantastic. And to your point, this is also my final point, obviously. But to your point, the whole scene at the end, which really has a feeling of Fight Club. I'm sure we've talked about that inspiration before, but really has that feeling of how Fight Club was shot, where it's very grimy. It's got the kind of flickering camera work, and then the two of them merge into the smile of the real Enigma being revealed when he says, it felt beautiful. He's going to do this again. This is not the only killing. His death, the death of Christian Kringle is not the only one that's going to be at his hands, at his choice. There's going to be future killings.
Absolutely. And like, we have to give a mention again, a shout out to Chelsea Speck. As Kristen Kringle, in this episode, I'm assuming it was her on the mortuary slab. It was, yeah. Obviously a quieter scene in which she has no lines to deliver, but she gave a fantastic performance as the love interest of Enigma, as the person who kind of really showed that she wasn't necessarily interested, really pulled as well Nigma, maybe to her own detriment, out of his shell.
Absolutely.
But the dynamic between the two were excellent. And, you know, we have to give a shout out to Chelsea Speck for playing such a great counterpoint to Ed Nigma.
Absolutely, and I hope she didn't mind the tweet out last night that said her performance was a little bit stiff in that episode. I hope she didn't mind that. But no, I really enjoyed that character, and it's another, you know, the characters were so well played, and we watched every single episode of the show, obviously, and talked about them, so feel like you get very close to these characters and don't want any of them to go. This is Gotham. A lot of people are going to die. Really, we understand that. Sad to have lost another one this episode. I think that's our top 5 points. I've got a couple of notes.
So do I. But Derek, what are your notes first?
Well, my first note is just our Bullockism of the week. I've got a choice for Bullockism of the week, which is effectively when Jim asks Harvey, do you believe what Butch is saying? Is he telling the truth? And Harvey says, questions like that are above my pay grade and below my sense of wonder. Which I love the turn of phrase of Harvey Bullock. Really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, exactly. He also comes out with, you know, this is Gotham. Everyone's lying in Gotham. Mm-hmm. And I think that relates again to this whole notion of, is Galavan really the person that's being described by Oswald, or is Oswald lying? You know, I mean, I'm just trying to think, does even Harvey Bullock know that Oswald and Jim still have this kind of secret between the two of them, or does he think that that's a thing in the past? So maybe, you know, the only truthful person in Gotham is Harvey Bullock.
Maybe.
So I really, really kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
It kind of brings me on to one of my notes as well. And that's actually more just Jim and Jim Gordon. It's a slight little negative.
Okay.
But I do think that the contradiction in Jim's character of being down in the mud and slumming it with Penguin and doing his dirty work, keeping that secret, and then being the high and mighty moral high ground. I think as it's going on, I'm becoming less and less convinced by this. I don't see enough conflict in Jim that he's struggling with this. It seems like he can flip on a dime between being Penguin's helper or taking Penguin's advice or believing him despite everything that's gone on and knowing just how bad Penguin is, and then becoming high and mighty to Captain Barnes or to Galavan. Yeah. I mean, what is the difference between Galavan and Penguin? Not an awful lot, yet Jim has decided to take a side. Mm-hmm. And I'm not too sure I'm fully on board with this at the moment. It kind of became quite obvious to me in this episode, but I still think the contradiction, I get it's Gotham. So it's not that I don't agree with it, but I think I need a bit more convincing that Jim is actually starting to struggle with this, because at the moment, it just seems like he flip-flops between the two depending on how it suits. And that's becoming, that makes this whole dichotomy less convincing for me. So it's a slight negative, but it certainly doesn't detract from this episode, which I absolutely love. Yeah.
It's almost as like occasionally the Jim Gordon character is written to suit the situation that the character's put in, which is not necessarily great. So there's a lot of things that are kind of backing up now. We've got a lot of things that are going on, a lot of things he's been involved in, which should be coming down to bear on him a lot more. But yeah, it just feels like he doesn't learn anything from the situation that he's just been in the previous episode, effectively, that he's just written in a slightly different way each time to suit it. So it's quite difficult to get a handle on how his character should react in every situation.
And maybe it's just I'm coming at it from the Jim Gordon of the comics or the films, where he is quite a moral character. Yeah. I mean, he does have his bad side. He does, I think, from The Dark Knight Rises, plunge his hands into the filth so that others don't have to. But you sense a conflict in that, Jim Gordon,
Mm-hmm.
that he's doing it for that purpose. So this character trait is there for Jim Gordon. I absolutely get that. But it just feels that maybe the character just doesn't seem concerned about it, or isn't wrangling with the issue in his own mind. And that is a bit problematic for me for Jim Gordon, because actually maybe he's the corrupt one. And maybe that's how Gotham is trying to push the boundaries of this character. Maybe they are completely altering Jim Gordon's character like they've done with Barbara Keane. Yeah. You know, they have done it. I'm not saying that they are, and I don't think they are. But I do think, am I just sort of projecting what I've known about Jim Gordon previously onto this version?
Yeah, so, potentially. I don't know whether it would be a huge perversion to say that Jim has had some corruption in his past. There's definitely evidence from comic books and from the films and other media where Jim Gordon has appeared that he is suspected, particularly by the district attorney in the town. He is suspected of having some form of criminality or some form of backhanders taken. He's not beyond reproach, I suppose, would be the easiest way to say it. He's not Batman. Batman's Batman. Jim Gordon has possibly had to work in the grey areas of Gotham to get things done. The point about this Jim Gordon is he came to the city thinking that he wouldn't have to go into those grey areas. He's gone quite deeply into them. And I think the point you're trying to make, I suppose, is, and I think the point you're making, John, if I'm right, is that we're not seeing the effects of those grey areas as we should be. He should be learning from them. He should be talking about them. He should be reacting to things a little bit quicker. Sometimes he feels like he's put in a scene as the Jim Gordon that we knew a year ago. And there needs to be a bit more.
It's a bit inconsistent. It's a bit inconsistent sometimes, definitely. And I think it kind of was very obvious in this episode, purely because you had, on the one hand, Galavan and on the other hand, Cobblepot. And actually very little, if anything, distinguishes either of them in terms of what they've done to achieve their status. Maybe it's just the sullying of the status of the Office of Mayor as to why Jim is in favour of Cobblepot, because he hasn't done that. But it starts to be a bit problematic for me, I think. And so it'll be useful to see how this carries through, I think, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just got one final note, which I thought was a fun one, a little call out for the relationship between Leslie and Jim, where Leslie passes over the keys to her apartment, to Jim, and he kind of goes, am I supposed to give you the keys to my apartment, to my place? And Leslie says, do you have a place? Which I love as a little call out, because we've never seen Jim's house. He's never had a house. He's lived in Barbara's house. He's lived in the police house. And now he basically always spends his time in Leslie's house. So I never actually knew, did he have an apartment, or had he moved in with her? So I like this little kind of in-joke that even Leslie doesn't know whether he has another house to go to or not.
It's really good. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a nice little kind of in-joke, definitely.
Yeah. That's, I think, our final notes and points on this episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else to...
I would definitely give this 4 ladyfingers out of 5. I mean, this was a really good episode, really strong. Okay, I've mentioned a little sort of negative there towards the end, but this episode is absolutely standout. Loads going on. Really, really good episode of Gotham. Yeah. But I think with that, we shall move on to some feedback.
Absolutely. If you want to send in your feedback to us, you can email us at feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook. You can just search for Gotham TV Podcast. We've got a page and a group. In the page, all of our discussions are obviously at Gotham at the UK pace. So come in and join us. We post a little spoiler warning for the episode, and you can just post in your thoughts as the episode unfolds. You can also obviously follow us on Twitter. We're Gotham TV Podcast over there. Go find us. So first off, to Facebook reactions after the episode. Claire Payne says Jim has been left with a lot to think about in the showdown scene. Love Galavan's reaction when Jim says he knows he killed Gertrude.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great moment when Jim looks over his shoulder and says to Galavan that he knows that He's the one that killed Gertrude, and Galavan just gives him this look and then says, shoot him. A nice little moment, but it is the look between him going, I don't care that you know, I'm now your boss. I'm now a mayor. You're now a tool that I can use. Nice little play by James Frayne in there. Really, really good.
Yeah. Doug Green says, ripped your heart right out when Mama Cappleput went, didn't it? Absolutely. Like, this was totally unexpected for me. I kind of thought they were going to save the day with Gertrude, or at least the double cross was going to happen, but maybe that they would both be imprisoned. I was not expecting the death of and the RIP of such a big character, whose presence, as I said, I think is huge on this show. So, both directly and indirectly. So I can't wait to see how this is going to absolutely screw up Oswald.
Yeah, definitely. And Don says, this episode has everything. So glad that Jim knows Galavan is bad news now. Poor Oswald. Totally agree with you, Don. Totally
Absolutely. This was a really good episode with loads going on and married it so well, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
On Twitter, we have Ricky Velez, RIP pretty lady, sad face, she says, as in response to Gertrude's death.
Yeah, and Paul Edwards comments about the guns in Butch's place. He says, effective guns, but can't see them being standard issue for police, even in Gotham.
No, it was pretty heavy military hardware there, definitely.
Yeah, I think Harvey really enjoyed getting his hands on them, though, as I said.
And a Media Shark UK said that Dent has alternative motives for sure, or has he? ? Is this the start of Two-Face?
Yeah, this is in reference to Nicholas D'Augusto popping up in this episode, who plays Harvey Dent, who we haven't seen in quite a few episodes. He appears here to introduce Galavan at the, I suppose, the celebratory party of becoming mayor of Gotham. Really interesting choice to have Harvey Dent up there, and I loved there was a couple of good little tags of the flashes of light bulbs on one side of his face again, showing that he is Two-Face. I really would love to see more of Nicholas D'Augusto in the show. I think it'd be interesting for somebody that doesn't watch the show very often, may not understand that this is the district attorney coming in and welcoming in the new mayor. Was interesting. There was no kind of intro moment. There was no meeting of him with any other character. He just came on stage, welcomed in Galavan, and then disappeared, you know? So I'd like to think, to Media Shock UK's tweet, I'd like to think there are alternative motives in here, but I don't know whether we're going to find out. I hope we are.
Hopefully. Yeah. I mean, he's there as well, providing Galavan and Barnes with the arrest warrant as well. So, like, he's again becoming heavily involved here, but hopefully he now becomes heavily involved again and with the show called Gotham.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
We got some feedback by direct message through Twitter from Paul Edwards. He goes, question for the podcast. Do you think Gordon will join Penguin to go after Theo and have to go against Captain Barnes to do so to restore the balance? ? Also, by the way, would just like to say the actor who plays Nigma was absolutely amazing in this episode. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
Corey Michael Smith was excellent here as Ed Nigma. Definitely, completely agree with you. Yeah, as good and bad Nigma, and then the Riddler. And I do think that it will be interesting to see now what happens with Captain Barnes, because I think the predicament that we have now for Jim is that he still has to protect Theo. He could argue that Galavan is this corrupt person who's killed his way to the post of mayor. But is Captain Barnes going to believe Theo Galavan, or is he going to believe Oswald Cobblepot? And he may start to question Jim Gordon. Well, why do you place Oswald's version of events, say, above someone who comes from a respected family, is wealthy, has been elected mayor, has tried to save Gotham? So this may put Captain Barnes on a collision course with Jim Gordon, because he's simply supporting Theo as being the mayor of Gotham. So in a sense, unbeknown to Captain Barnes, he's siding with the bad guy and is going to arrange maybe the office of captain of the GCPD at Jim Gordon. Or maybe there will be suspicions by Captain Barnes of this potential connection between Jim and Oswald.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting question, Paul. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be intrigued to see if Gordon teams up with Penguin. It might be one of those, enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of ideas. Yeah. He's worked with Oswald before, but in the capacity of the two of them working together to take down Galavan, I suppose the motive of Oswald is to kill the person who killed his mother. That'll hopefully be very different from Jim. I presume he wants to arrest him and take him down a peg, get him out of the mayor office, expose who he is to the public. I would doubt that there'll be a vendetta that he would be going after Galavan and killing him. I think that would be more Oswald's motive. So knowing that, would Jim team up with someone that is going to kill the mayor of Gotham? I don't know, but he may be pushed into a circumstance where he does have to team up.
Yeah, watch this space. It'd be interesting to see how it pans out, definitely.
Yep. We also have some email feedback this week from Daniel Butcher from Welcome to Level 7 podcast, the best Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast, I think.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Daniel, for your feedback. He says, hello, detectives. I really liked Penguin's trick. It's nice to remember that he is a genius. Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Yeah. Really good. Really good. He says, Galavan, I know a lot of people don't like him, think he's a little over the top. I love him. This is a comic book villain if I have ever seen one. Agent Daniel out.
Big time. I'm really enjoying Galvin. I'm loving his laconic delivery of the lines. I thought the shoot him whisper to Jim Gordon in the face-off against Penguin was awesome. It was really, really good. It's the smile at every turn and then the menace on his face when he's with the people who he really trusts. Yeah. And also then there's the fact that he brings the history to Gotham, the context of this feud between the Galavans and the Waynes, which is so fascinating. So yeah, I love this character, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Really liking Theo Galavan and really liking James Frain's portrayal of the character. It's fun. It's different. It's not as over the top as Fish Mooney would have gotten sometimes during season 1. So I don't know. I guess they're going to have an over the top character in Gotham, but there's so much going on here. There's so much more of a heightened quality within season 2 of Gotham that I don't know whether Galavan stands out as being too comic booky. He's a good villain for Gotham, really, in my head.
Absolutely.
Our next piece of feedback comes from Natalie. Gives a long piece of feedback, but I really enjoyed reading it, so I'm going to
really
go through it. So Natalie says, it's my turn to feel that something moved a bit too fast in Gotham. For me, it was the election, as in, well, we didn't see it. Come on, this is Gotham. It feels like a town where vote early, vote often is thrown around only half jokingly. Where's the ballot stuffing? Where's the voter intimidation? If Theo Galavan is not above intimidating a freaking congressman into a mere endorsement, then he certainly isn't above voter intimidation. On the other hand, it would have been funny for some random mook asking Theo about voter intimidation and Theo scoffing, oh please, I have standards. The voting must be fair and square. Still, it would have been nice to have a small sequence of voters showing up to one representative polling place, then the Galavan campaign hearing this and celebrating the news that he did indeed win, just to let us know the election happened. I mean, this is what Theo has been aiming for in his early game. Even if story-wise it was a foregone conclusion that he'd win, he could have used that kind of touchstone. However, having said that, it is becoming apparent that the reason some things do feel compressed and too fast is because this season is packed with twists and turns and everything is interconnected. If you move A, you affect D. Take the Gloucester election, for example. You will be seeing this episode in early spring, John and Derek. But we Americans saw it the day before Election Day. In an eerie coincidence, my hometown, says Natalie, had a mayoral race to decide this year, and so did my Fox station's host city. The episode fits perfectly where it landed time-wise, and the election itself likely marked the end of phase 1 of Theo Galavan's grand plan. Interesting note here, Natalie.
Yeah.
And I was going to mention it in my notes, but I read your feedback just before we started our podcast. Interesting note is, in Ireland, we have our general election, our election for all of our candidates to run, our state.
So at the end of this week. Yeah.
So that's on Friday of this week. So interesting that this episode had landed in the week of an election where we're seeing tons and tons of candidates saying things to try and get votes. Some maybe as dishonest as Gallivan. Hopefully not. The ones I vote for, hopefully. But yeah, it's been interesting to be walking up a road, looking at posters, proclaiming that they're the next thing to save our city and save our country. When in fact, some of them have no idea how to run a country, and are probably in for their own reasons. So interesting to see that, and then come into Gotham and see that they've elected a new mayor. So yeah.
That was a party political broadcast by Derek.
So back to Natalie's email. She says, so let's think of the election as a fixed point and whose episode had to air in early November. However, because of the intricacies of Theo's plan, many dominoes must fall into place for him to reach this point. She says, earlier, John, you complained that Sarah Essen died so soon into the season at the hands of Jerome. Since every police department in the world would crack down hardest on cop killers, only the insane, like Jerome, or the very cunning, like Theo Gallivan, would be so foolhardy to storm into a police station and kill the commissioner, thereby incurring such wrath. However, Jerome would be sacrificed early as a pawn in Theo's aim to become mayor by looking like a hero. Killing Jerome to help save Bruce Wayne kickstarts Theo's rise in popularity. Therefore, Commissioner Sarah Essen had to die early.
That's a really, really good point, and it fits that theory, which I think I would adhere to, about dominoes having to fall into place. And I think, I actually do feel that, okay, you are always going to get that in a story and in a narrative. It could be that maybe with Gertrude's, death here, is it untimely? Is it not? I don't think it's untimely. I don't feel that in the same way. Because she hasn't been central to the episodes. But nonetheless, I would like to see that this will now kickstart a whole series of events in the life of one Oswald Cobblepot. So it'll be interesting to see. But I certainly think that's a very well made point. Yeah. Thanks so much for that, Natalie. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely a good point. Natalie goes on to say, my other big reaction to this episode was, dang, Silver St. Cloud is as evil as her stepdad. As soon as she showed her evil side, I instantly hated her.
Snap.
I was hoping she would be merely an innocent pawn, then she could resurface in season 3 and serve a similar function to teenage Bruce as her adult counterpart usually did in the comics, as a high society date for Playboy Bruce. Gotham is already crowded enough, but Bruce could use a few more peers to interact with in various ways. I totally agree with that. I think we need a few more. I think we need Tommy Elliott back, and we need to have Bruce interact with them and then maybe become friends. Bruce is seeming more and more isolated out in that house.
That big country house, that Wayne Manor.
And we do know, obviously, Batman is a solitary character, but we should see Bruce at least interact with some other characters. Natalie says the flip side of this is that Natalie Allen Lynn's performance blew me away with a maturity and a femme fatale sexuality far beyond her years. Creepy good. Massive kudos to the casting director who finds the talent for this show, and I get to add my mental list of actresses who share my name. The casting director has actually recently won an award for the cast, the ensemble cast for Gotham, and a well-deserved award. A third and final thought, continues Natalie. Just when you think Penguin has completely lost it over his missing and then dead mother, he reveals the presence of mind to come up with a brilliant strategy to get inside with an army of Penguin decoys. Great image. 'Twas another great episode. Couldn't agree more, Natalie.
Absolutely. Definitely.
One of the other things I did find interesting in the episode, we didn't mention it in our notes or our points about the episode. I love that Oswald says to Jim, if you kill me now, you won't know the real plan behind Theo. Didn't mention it at all. So he's referencing the fact that he does know that Theo's trying to control Wayne Enterprises and trying to take out Bruce Wayne from Wayne Enterprises and take that over. And he's the only one that knows this. I like that. So Jim has worked out that Theo's a bad guy. He's worked out that he's killed Gertrude, but he doesn't know the real plan. The only person that knows that is Oswald. So I like that connection. I like there's a little more that Oswald has once again.
Oswald always knows the plan. He is the man in the know, definitely. And that's what I love about Oswald Cobblepot. Mm-hmm. There is a reason he was a snitch to the police and to the MCU in season 1. And it's great seeing that side of Oswald Cobblepot, definitely.
And our final piece of feedback for this week comes from Owen Heafy. Not about Gotham, but about our Batman versus Superman discussion that we talked about. Owen says, Hi there, John. Just been listening to episode 5. I was enjoying your discussion about the start of Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice production. I was just wondering if in your next podcast you could discuss the casting of Ezra Miller as the Flash. As someone who is very invested in Grant Gustin as Barry Allen, it is a shame that he was not brought into the film. As for Green Arrow, there doesn't seem to be any mention of him. I believe Stephen Amell will be a huge addition. Your discussion was well rounded in the idea that TV could be a younger version of the film, but it seems Flash is about the same age. John, what's your thoughts? We have a new Flash and a new Arrow, potentially, in the movie universe. They've pretty much confirmed in DC they're not going to use any of the actors that have portrayed those two particular characters on the TV run. They're not going to use those in the DC universe. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I posted on the Gotham TV podcast group. It was the six figures coming up in the DC universe, you know, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Aquaman, and of course then you have Ezra Miller as the Flash. And it's the first image I actually had seen of Ezra Miller, and I really kind of thought he looked the part. Having said that, I've also bought into the Flash. I was never a big Flash fan or fanatic, but Grant Gustin has really brought me into that universe in a really good way. I really like the Flash, and certainly it was an interesting choice for DC to leave him on the small screen, and cast someone new. I just think that's how DC works. I don't think it's all about being connected like with Marvel, where if you have Nick Fury popping up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., well then it's going to have to be Samuel L. Jackson. I just don't think that's how Warner Brothers and DC roll with regards to these characters.
Absolutely.
I mean, even just on the notion of, like, we watched The Dark Knight Rises there, only maybe a couple of days ago, and just the difference in tone that I can see that Batman v Superman is going to be based on the trailers. Yeah, it's going to be dark, it's going to be brooding, but you can see a difference in what it's going to provide to that character of Batman.
Absolutely.
Compared to what the Christopher Nolan trilogy did, and it's going to build on it and add onto it. And so hopefully then Ezra Miller and Grant Gustin both will contribute to the Flash character and to Barry Allen's character in a really overall positive way for the Flash. I know certainly for me, Grant Gustin has been like really, really good, and I think
I've really enjoyed him, definitely. Yeah.
And from that basis, it's a shame maybe that he was overlooked. Absolutely. And I think for me, for Stephen Amell, it would have been really nice to have seen him in there. I mean, I've heard at New York Comic Con, 2 years ago, you know, Jeff Johns, who is like the creative director and chief of DC, or in fact is he the chief executive officer of DC Comics and so on, he really gave a huge shout out as to what Stephen Amell did to bring the DC universe to the TV, and to provide a popularity to it, which has ultimately led to The Flash, to Gotham, to Supergirl, and to the Legends of Tomorrow. I mean, this is a huge number of properties now of DC that have come.
Constantine, as a little tear rolled down my cheek.
That's true. And Constantine, a big tear rolls down my cheek, really, at that. You know, so Stephen Amell has done an absolute huge amount for the standing of DC, I think, in terms of the TV screen. And I think he could, and it would have been nice to see him in the movies as well. Yeah,
I don't know. I agree. But I do think, gotta remember, these guys do a 22 episode series of a show. The intention of the new DC movie universe with Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, it's in the title. It will be the dawn of the Justice League of films, effectively. I think we've got 6 different DC movies that are all connected to each other that are being born out of Batman vs Superman. So either you cancel the Arrow TV show and cancel the Flash TV show and you move those actors into Hollywood movies, which neither of them have done really in the past. So, can you hang an entire movie franchise of millions and millions, far more than the budget of a 22 episode TV show? Can you hang that on Grant Gustin? Can you hang that on Stephen Amell? Possibly not. So I think they're looking for something very different in the movie universe. So I'm really happy with what we get on Flash. I'm really happy with having that TV show out there. I don't know whether I needed the leap, or the speedy jump, from the TV screen into the movies for the character of Grant Gustin. One of the other things is we do get to see the multiverse quite a lot, on the TV show of Flash. So we see loads of different versions of people playing the Flash.
Well, that's true.
4 or 5 of them, I think, so far.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. That kind of sets it up that potentially there's just a different universe where there's a person that looks very different who's also called Barry Allen and also the Flash. So it sets it up if they ever want an in-continuity explanation for this. But I don't think that's what DC are going for.
No. But I wonder whether there will be a little cameo or of some description, not even one that's necessarily sort of highlighted in any way. That kind of
they at least get to visit the set.
Oh yeah, let's hope DC aren't that stingy.
Absolutely. But thank you so much for that feedback, Owen.
Yeah, thanks so much, Owen.
And thanks very much to everybody who's given us feedback this week.
Yeah, you can provide the feedback at gothamtvpodcast.com. You can search Gotham TV Podcast on Facebook, join our group, like our page, and of course, tweet at us repeatedly at Gotham TV Podcast.
Definitely. Great to hear from all the listeners and really good to have some really good feedback this week. You can join us next week for episode 8 of Gotham. We'll be back every week now up until episode 22. You can find the podcast obviously at gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes if you're an iTunes kind of person. If you're an Android person, you can find us on any other good podcast catcher like Beyond Pod, Acast. You can find us through Podcast Addicts or Stitcher if you wish. Please leave us a review anywhere you can see to leave reviews. That always helps people find our podcast. And really, really good talking again about Gotham. We'll speak to you again next week.
Yeah, I'm off to drink some Lapsang Souchong. Take in the smoky pinewood flavour. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back with you next week for Gotham episode 8.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for being a Butch supporter. Butch loves you, baby.
Which is coupled with, quite frankly, the reveal that River Song is not as innocent as she might be. What?
River Song.
River
Different show, John.
Oh my god. But of course, this is all coupled with the reveal that, oh god, it's that. I've got River Song in my head now.
This has been a Flickering Myth Podcast Network production. For more information, head over to flickeringmyth.com for more shows like it. Find this show in iTunes by searching for the podcast name, and head over to youtube.com/Flickering Myth to subscribe to the Flickering Myth movie show. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye bye.